More than half. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the opportunity to present Senate File 102. This is something that Senator Dockstader and I had been kind of discussing for the past, 6 months or so. Recognizing that there's a lot of discussion about the need for additional dispatchable electricity, the need for just more electricity in general. We're talking about data centers coming online. And of course, being an energy producing state, I think this fits right in our wheelhouse as to, how are we going to help handle that growth and, what role, if any, does the government play in doing that? So what this bill does is simply provides direction to the Wyoming Energy Authority as they begin to study what our current capacity is, what future load growth may look like, and then begin to sort of delve into some of the potential changes coming to the way our utilities operate with one another in the form of day-ahead markets and regional transmission organizations. So to be clear, Mr. Chair, I'll say right at the outset that this study is going to happen whether we pass the bill or not. They already have the funding for it. They're pressing forward. I think the value of the bill is to give the legislature an opportunity to provide that input. And frankly, something that I will benefit from as the bill goes through the process. I think that we all need to get up to speed on some of these issues. What is a day ahead market? What is an RTO? These are things that I think are going to be a topic of increasing discussion as we move forward in the next 5 to 10 years. You can look to our west, California, beginning to try to expand their footprint through some sort of RTO type organization or a day ahead market. And then, of course, a lot of our electrical co-ops, especially on the east side of the state, are currently a part of RTO with Southwest Power Pool just to our east. And so I think that this is going to be a fascinating discussion. This is going to be a very important study. And I think that our branch of government should begin to engage in that process, because you can see states like Nevada, for example, requiring emission into RTOs by 2030. I'm not suggesting we take that step, Mr. Chairman, but those are the sorts of discussions that are happening throughout the American West. And I think that we need to at least be aware of it. So that's what the bill does, Mr. Chairman. I can go over it briefly, but I think I basically did already.
Before you do, could you explain what an RTO is?
Okay, yeah, sorry. Regional Transmission Organization. It's my understanding that currently throughout the American West, our utilities have bilateral agreements as to how they buy and sell electricity. An RTO is effectively a multilateral organization or agreement that dictates how all utilities in a given area will buy and sell electricity. And so that's a very basic understanding. I'm sure you probably know more about it than I do, Mr. Chairman. And we'll have some experts who come up and provide their input as well. But that's a basic concept. If done correctly, I think it'll reduce rates for the ratepayers and provide stability in the electrical market, because we have a set of rules that applies as utilities buy and sell electricity amongst their footprints.
Thank you. I think it might be good if you went through the bill.
Okay.
Unless you want to defer to someone else to go through the bill.
I think I can do it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
So basically 2 phases, Mr. Chairman. Phase 1 will look at the impacts of that 3 potential low growth scenario. You'll see that we assume low growth, moderate growth, and high growth. There's no real, definition as to what qualifies for each of the categories, but I think that's the general idea, that we can have 3 different low growth scenarios and look at basically what we need for expanded transmission capacity over the next 20 years to meet with those various load growth scenarios. That could be actually increasing the amount of transmission lines, or it could be advanced transmission technologies that make the current grid more efficient. So you see that as kind of on page 2 going on to page 3. And then, of course, once we kind of identify what the current capacity is, identify some potential for what the increased demand is, we can begin to identify any potential gaps in the current system when it comes to transmission. So that's phase one. Phase two, we began to look at how current transmission could be integrated into regional systems. We'd look at potentially a day-ahead market or a regional transmission organization. And then begin to look at the economic analysis associated. So we're a power producing state. Certainly we look at our ability to produce electrons as an important part of our economy. That'll include an economic analysis of the impact that those various increases for demand would have on our economy. And then going on to page 4, we're going to look at what potential upgrades may be necessary. Again, looking forward to see, what it's going to take to meet with this increased demand. Then we have a report back to this committee as well as the Minerals Committee. And we did a deadline for phase 1 of November 1st, 27, and phase 2, September 1st, 2028. I felt like that was a reasonable enough time frame. Of course, they can always do it sooner if they would like. And that's effective immediately. Just like to emphasize, there's no appropriation. Energy Authority believes with the current scope of the study that they can accomplish this with their existing resources. So that's the bill, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Questions for Senator Bono? Senator Landon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, Senator, thanks for the rundown on the bill. I had a couple of questions related to if all of this goes really well and phase 1 and phase 2 come out with some of the best study material we've ever had. Will it point to sources of transmission at all? Or in other words, what sources to generate that power? And then the second question is this pointed toward someday having Wyoming just stand on its own and provide power to the market? Is that where we're looking with this? I'm just trying to understand. So we do this really great study, phase 1, phase 2, get lots of information. What does the bingo look like?
Go ahead, Senator Bono.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I think, well, certainly the low growth scenarios would, I think, go into detail as to what the additional need for capacity would be. And then, like I mentioned briefly before, other Western states have considered requirements to join day-ahead markets or RTOs. We might have to decide whether we look more to the east or more to the west. If that is a path we want to pursue, or maybe some sort of hybrid, depending on where you're at the state. These are the sorts of policy discussions other Western states are having. I'm not sure what I think about that, Mr. Child. I'm not sure what I think about requiring, our utilities to join an RTO, especially when it seems to be, we may be moving that direction as is, about let them, speak for themselves. But those are the sorts of policy discussions other Western states have been having, to be clear. So that could be, this study is meant to inform those discussions coming later. That's the point. So
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Senator Dockstader.
Mr. Chairman, if I could follow up to that, it's important to understand our sources of power and supplies, at least speaking on, and I full disclosure, I'm associated with a co-op. We are tracking our source, which mainly is hydro, and made 2 or 3 trips back to DC to secure those agreements and contracts. It's important that we understand this because the demand's not just if it's data centers, but the demand is continually increasing, and we have to know that our sources are reliable, and that comes out in this study as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So, Senator Dockstader, you're saying we're looking at sources of electricity as well as transmission? Senator Bono?
I don't think the study necessarily contemplates that. It does. I think it's covered under the load growth scenarios. It's going to specify the potential need for new generation. I think I believe that's what the senator is pointing out. It's going to, it's going to have to be reliable and dispatchable, clearly.
Mr. Chairman?
Go ahead, Senator Dockstader.
Mr. Chairman, but we have to understand all our resources when it comes to supplying power. Thank you.
Yeah, just several, we've had several mentions of new generation needed and sometimes dispatchable generation, but the bill doesn't really contemplate generations planning as I read it. But Senator Boner, back to you. Bring us home, and then we'd probably go to the authority.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we can, I think that's part of just an analyzing, there's going to be, I imagine there's going to be a gap. The study will produce a result that will show that we do not have sufficient resources to meet the load growth scenarios. So while it may not be explicitly in the bill, I think that's going to be the result, because we're going to see that what we currently have in terms of generation capacity is not sufficient for the load growth scenarios. So I agree, it's not in there explicitly, but I believe that it's going to be very obvious once you come up with those different load growth scenarios. But certainly if the committee wants to add explicit references to the need for generation capacity, I think that'd be a very friendly amendment.
Okay, we'll probably consider some of that. Thank you very much. Who from the authority? Mr. Krieger. We'll start with you, Mr. Krieger. Welcome. And you can
Morning, Mr. Chairman. How are you?
direct your agency however you like.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Rob Krieger, Executive Director of the Energy Authority. I have John Jenks with me today, who is our Director of Energy Market Development, who does this type of work day in and day out and knows these things a lot better than I do. Senator Boner walked through the bill and mentioned, that we were sort of headed down this path anyway. A lot of our surrounding states, you look at Colorado, North Dakota, New Mexico, just to name a few. Utah, I know, is looking at restarting theirs to look at transmission pinch points, as were discussed. The Western markets, how that's looking right now and how it's going to impact their states. So we were heading down that to look at, having that information for you all, for us, for the public as well, when they have these discussions going on. And that's where we were looking at doing this. Senator Boner had reached out, and I, look back to last year, we did an energy economic impact study. What Senator Dockstader was the prime sponsor on that one. We always appreciate having some direction from you all too. So we have what you all want to see in these type of studies as well. So I saw this as great. We can wait a little bit till you guys come to town and put your thoughts onto this and make sure we go forward. Real quick too, I just want to mention, our plan and how we operate is we were going to bring in obviously the PSC, the OCA, our utilities, our co-ops, those folks as we do this. Also, the generation discussion that was just had, we've done a comprehensive coal study that we'll be wrapping up here in the next week or so. And in that coal study, doesn't necessarily say what generation we should have, but it does show over the region rates and what the mix of generation within those areas are and what the prices are. So you'll see in this study right now, those states and those areas that predominantly use coal, the price is quite a bit cheaper. But I think the question and what could come out of this study, as well as the pinch points, what is the fastest to market if there is needing for growth, and what utilities might be wanting to do there. So just want to say, as the senator mentioned, I think we do have the resources in-house. We have within our budget that you guys give us, we do have money to do studies like this as part of the reason the Energy Authority exists. So happy to answer any questions.
I just have one preliminary one. Have you discussed this with Mr. McVeigh, former head of the governor's office?
Mr. Chairman, I have not discussed this with my former boss.
Maybe we could do that later today.
I'd be happy to.
Okay. Committee, any other questions? Any other questions? Mr. Jenks, do you want, guys are good?
Mhm.
Okay. Then I'm going to go a little bit more. A couple areas. I think in a lot of ways, to be kind of think about our situation. So we have major transmission in Wyoming that's connected to major fossil fuel resources. And that, as those fossil fuel resources operate less, then that transmission becomes available. And we've seen a lot of expansions from those locations but using that original backbone that was developed for those fossil fuel resources. There's a lot of studies, national studies about how transmission is more important to actually support renewables and diverse renewables across the country and break down the barriers of the grids. For example, the eastern grid and the western grid have very little interplay, but that's changing. That's huge changes. It's not necessarily a transmission resource, but if you study those interties, you find that you can bring in the diversity of the other grids, and it's not really a transmission necessarily. There are transmission components, and the same with the generation aspects. So I'm a little worried that we're just focusing on transmission. It's kind of narrowing our thinking. And then the other thing I see, Senator Boner did mention the word ratepayer in his presentation, but the words ratepayer and ratepayer impacts, there's not a mention of them in this bill. And I think, we have a situation where our electric utility infrastructure is, at least the majority of it is still anchored in the traditional utility system, where ratepayers through the PSC and, different types of customers pay for everything. And it's across states, and that has to be allocated. But we do see, like, the Anschutz project is privately funded, private transmission, not interconnected, at least for now. I think that'll probably change over time. And so that's not in the ratepayer realm. But I don't see ratepayers being insulated from these impacts. And I would hope we would put them foremost, because right now, as you know, almost everybody buys electricity in Wyoming through the regulated system. So anyway, those are my thoughts. Appreciate any comment, and we'll open it up to the other agencies.
Mr. Chairman, I think those are fair points. I do know in the bill, it says at a minimum, which we did as well as in the economic study last year, that kind of gives us that
Yeah.
flexibility too, when we look at, when we some of this will have to go to RFP on, just looking broader, and hearing the remarks from you all, we can put those sort of things in.
Might think about that. Okay, any other questions, committee? We're good? Senator Dockstader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, we have the director here on those 2 points. If we were to insert ratepayer language and sources of electricity, give some thought as to where you would see that, the two of you as well. I don't know that I expect it out of you right here on the table, but some thoughts on that too.
Mr. Chairman, Senator Dockstader, where we would put that in, probably within phase 2, I feel like we could probably integrate that in there, maybe at the end of that, or that could be a whole other phase if necessary, but
Possibly an E on page 3.
that could be, Mr. Chairman, yes.
How about you guys maybe take a draft at some language?
Okay.
All right. Let's hear from some other agencies then. We appreciate you guys a lot.
Thank you.
We appreciate, this is important. Let's hear from the Public Service Commission. Can we hear from the Public Service Commission? Is anybody here from the Public Service Commission? Interesting. How about the Office of Consumer Advocate? Can we hear from the Office of Consumer Advocate? Is anybody here from the Office of Consumer Advocate? Interesting. Is there any other state agencies? How about utilities? Can we hear from utilities? Yes, sir. They're here. Interesting. Welcome, sir.
My name is.
Pull that microphone over. You got to turn it on, get a green light, and get it up close to you.
How
There you
about,
go.
how about now?
That's very good.
Almost like karaoke night. There we go.
It's kind of like that.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, once again for allowing me to be here. My name is Bill Mertz. I am the CEO of Members First Power Cooperative, a G&T member of Basin Electric Power Cooperative family, and a member of Wyoming Rural Electric Association, WREA, who you're familiar with, and serving Powder River Energy Corporation. And as many of you are familiar with, Precorp is a member-owned rural utility electric cooperative serving about 27,000 meters across 16,000 square miles of Northeast Wyoming. And as you also may know, Basin Electric, G&T, operates across 9 different states. And I would, just on a personal note, say in past precedents, to your point of looking to the crowd, you would likely see many more of my colleagues here today, members of WRA in attendance, but unfortunately, one of our legacy board members, Miss Julie Kilty, recently passed away, many of which are at her memorial service today. So you get second string, maybe third string here. I don't know.
We're very sorry.
Um,
She's done a lot over the years.
She has, and I appreciate your recognition of that. But to begin, I want to be very clear. Members First Power and Precorp supports responsible transmission planning. We don't oppose studying transmission needs. Our concerns are focused with specific provisions within the bill. If I may make just quickly 4 points.
Absolutely.
Phase 2 presupposes an answer. Phase 2 of this study directs the Energy Authority to explore integration into competing day-ahead and real-time markets and a regional transmission organization, and then identifying what transmission upgrades are needed to enhance regional integration. That language frames the RTO participation as a question of how, not whether. The bill doesn't ask whether regional integration benefits Wyoming, some of the questions asked. It directs the study to plan for it. Once that framework is in place, it builds institutional and political momentum, and that becomes increasingly difficult to refine or redirect or unwind later if necessary. Point number 2, dealing with load growth scenarios that are undefined. The bill directs an analysis of low, moderate, and high demand scenarios, but does not really define what those means. No megawatt ranges, no geographic location. For example, in Precorp's territory alone, they have an active load inquiries that range from 4 megavolt to 300 megawatts. The transmission implications are completely different depending on where that load lands and how much of it will materialize. So without defined parameters, the study risks becoming perhaps an academic exercise rather than an actionable plan is part of the concern. Point number 3, no cost allocation protections. The bill does not address who pays for the transmission upgrades. It may sound familiar. The study will recommend. It requires no cost benefit analysis from the perspective of Wyoming retail customer. Transmission studies produce recommendations, and recommendations produce cost allocation debates. Rural ratepayers need protections built on this process from the very beginning and not after the study is complete. Point number 4, cooperatives serve the majority of Wyoming's geographic area. This bill specifies no formal stakeholder engagement process for the utilities that would be the most affected by this transmission restructuring. A study conducted without structured input from the people who actually operate the system risks producing recommendations disconnected from how Wyoming's electric grid works outside of urban corridors. So, in closing, Precorp would support a study focused on phase 1 transmission analysis with defined load growth parameters, formal cooperative engagement, and ratepayer cost benefit requirements, and a narrowed or perhaps even a removal of phase 2. We asked the committee to, if they would, ensure that this study protects the interest of rural owners who are dependent upon cooperative electricity. And with that, I thank you.
Thank you. And it's Mr. Mertz, right?
Mr. Mertz, yes.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Mertz. We appreciate your input. Committee questions for Mr. Mertz? Senator Bonner.
Well, thank you for your input. I do appreciate it. And I appreciate the opportunity to work with our co-ops and before this bill was published and made a few changes, of course, based off of your input, and glad to hear additional input here today. So with the, I appreciate your point about the different load growth scenarios not being defined. Do you have a suggestion for what that would be?
Mr. Mertz.
Senator, yes, Mr. Chairman, Senator, yes, thank you. I I am not your party to go ahead and get into those details, but it does, your invitation to have the conversation and to get into those details. We, first of all, thank you again for the pre-conversations that you have suggested have taken place. Very much welcome that. But to that very point, these details as well as others, we would love and to have it be formalized into that contribution process.
So Mr. Mertz, are you suggesting, I'm just trying to figure out how we move ahead. Are you suggesting that the study include consultation about those parameters with utilities and rural co-ops and entities? Or are you suggesting we put those parameters in first?
I would recommend always collaboration in advance of, if you would, memorializing any suggested legislation.
Mhm.
I hope I answered your question. So if I heard your question correctly, Mr. Chairman,
I'm not sure I said it correctly, but I think that's right. The deal is, I think committees are the best places to do the work rather than on the floor. So, we'll talk about process a little bit maybe, but I get your point.
thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Landon?
Thank you, Senator.
So really, Mr. Mertz, I appreciate the conversation because it was kind of floating around when I read this bill, some of the things that have been brought up this morning. Is there anything that you'd like to see out of this? If we're going to conduct this study, which is pretty robust, is there anything that you would like to see on your behalf or behalf of the REAs out across the state? What would you like to see that isn't in here?
Mr. Mertz?
Senator Landon, Mr. Chairman, Senator Landon, thank you for that question. I don't know that I'm prepared to give you as many details as I would like at this moment, but what I would like to have is the opportunity to maybe formulate and work with my colleagues to be able to share those further details. I think that's an excellent question and it warrants an excellent answer, and perhaps we could, and I want to again applaud the pre-conversations that have been happening, because collaboration is a very important part. And so I just would say maybe expanding upon the opportunity to give specific tenants, but maybe kind of narrowing in whether or not we're looking at ranges of 50 to 300 megawatts, as I mentioned, in terms of some of the experiences and the phase two. Let me just say, we don't oppose studying transmission needs. We support phase one. The concern with phase two directs specific outcomes before the study even begins. So perhaps not maybe having a conclusion, but maybe making more of a process that would help lead to a process of getting to the right solution. Does that make sense?
No, that's very good. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate that.
Senator Bonner wants to jump in here. Go ahead, Senator Bonner.
Yeah, so, and thanks, Mr. Chairman, and yeah, certainly appreciate the input. Like I say, you've already provided. I wish that, if giving your testimony, and the fact that we have been working together, that you could have come a little bit more prepared with suggestions, but I think we can work with this. And just, I say on page 3, line 16, I guess it was never my intent to force a conclusion to the study. And so I think the current language of study implications doesn't necessarily, I'm just not reading that there's a foregone conclusion that we're going to do anything based off of that language, but we can always make it more clear. And I think that may be a good opportunity in that paragraph A to include analysis on the impacts to the ratepayers and analysis as to whether such an integration is in the state of Wyoming's interest. We can make that very clear, I guess, in that paragraph. But like I said, Mr. Chairman, I'm just not reading that the same way it seems like our witnesses here. So.
Yeah, just looking at the big picture here, though, it's really early in the session and we only have one bill on Wednesday. We could hear all the testimony today, let people get together and see if there are some suggestions that come out. Maybe there won't be any, but maybe hear the testimony and just carry the bill over till Wednesday and let people work together if they want to. And you could lead that, Senator Bonner, or you could let the agency lead that. Senator Dockstader.
Mr. Chairman, on that point, I've heard Mr. Mertz say, first we have 4 points and then we have 3. And that's if we were given more time to narrow down specifically what it needs. And I would hope his colleagues in the industry would join as well. Seems like you're running, Mr. Mertz, run the front line by yourself here. So,
Well, yeah, and Mr. Taylor's not in present, so,
Yeah.
but the industry has different segments that may have different views, that's for sure. And then, but Mr. Mertz, you're welcome to comment.
No, as I mentioned, I think conversation is warranted to be extended, but Mr. Taylor is also at the memorial service. So he
Yeah.
sends his regrets in not being able to attend.
So in a way, we've kind of picked a bad,
Yeah.
it was unavoidable. Well, Mr. Mertz, we thank you for your testimony. Let's hear other testimony. Let's hear all the testimony that we have today on this bill, and then we might consult on it. And if you have suggestions about a collaborative couple days, love to hear that too. Mr. Lindholm, welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tyler Lindholm, State Director of Americans for Prosperity here in the Cowboy State. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I am the amendment that you have sitting on your desk in regards to Senate File 102. We're generally in support of the legislation, but Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, something that we've been looking at as a trend across states over the last several or so years has to do with right of first refusal in regards to transmission. Our organization takes a stance very much against right of first refusal. This isn't an issue in the state of Wyoming. What this amendment attempts to do is to ensure that when the study is taking place, that no consideration is given towards the utilization of right of first refusal. Because it is not law in the state of Wyoming, it would be it would be unfortunate if that scenario was taken into consideration due to it not being here and due to the fact that it's being overturned in multiple states. So it might tip things in an unrealistic manner if we were to look at that in the study. So that would be the ask. And Mr. Chairman, that would go on page 4 after line 4. It would be a new number 4. So this would take into consideration the entirety of the study, phase 1 and phase 2. And Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, it would just state that the transmission planning study shall not in any phase or component consider, analyze, evaluate, assume, recommend, or otherwise account for any right of first refusal, priority right, or similar preferential mechanism that would grant an incumbent utility transmission owner or any other entity exclusive or first opportunity to develop, own, or operate new or expanded transmission facilities. And it goes on there, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. The real reason why we're opposed to right of first refusal right off the top has a lot to do with the fact that you cannot build transmission especially in the state of Wyoming, without some type of public domain being involved. That being the case, it is our opinion that should be an open bidding process and should be as transparent as possible without any kind of incumbent ownership right off the get-go.
Okay. Questions for Mr. Lindholm? Any questions? So Mr. Lindholm, this is a big deal, of course, and I can see the sensibleness of it. You know, it's sort of like if we're going to move forward, are we going to have our actions grounded because of 100 and almost 50 years of electricity? I think 1878 was the electric light bulb and the beginning of electrification. So I definitely get that point. But there are vast ownership interests that belong to ratepayers. They've made investments for eons, and there are implications of all that. So this kind of throws all that out the window, and I understand why. Would you care to comment?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I think when it comes down to transmission projects and what the implications are across the Cowboy State, I think it's too big of an issue not to ensure that the public has that transparency right off the get-go. And that's really the implication of this amendment, is ensuring that right of first refusal is not taken into consideration so that transparency remains above most. Due to your point, Mr. Chairman, ratepayers really are the ones that own the system, and they're the ones that built it.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Anybody else for Mr. Lindholm? We're going to take this under advisement, and I'm not sure if there's going to be a working group for the next couple of days. You'd certainly be available to work on that.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Let's hear from others. Here's the We've got the Bush establishment, we've got Farm Bureau, we've got, wow. Mr. Bush, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Apologies, I'm still getting over a bit of a head cold. David Bush with Black Hills Energy. Mr. Chairman, to be quick, we're happy to participate if there is a couple-day working group. I've been trying to get my transmission guru from Rapid City online. I think he's on vacation. So I'm hoping to get him to be able to participate as well, because he is our expert on this kind of stuff. But in general, I think doing a study, we don't have any problems with that. With the guardrails and everything in place, it sounds like it's a good process moving forward. We have analyzed the RTO issue a lot lately. We have decided not to join an RTO. WAPA, Western Area Power Authority, kind of gave us a deadline to do that or get out. So some of you may have heard of our project, a transmission project just completed called Ready Wyoming. Built kind of a loop from southeastern Wyoming outside of Goshen County and down around Cheyenne, and then looped back up towards Douglas to tie into our other transmission and generation. And that's really was our attempt to prepare Cheyenne for the growth that we're seeing in southeast Wyoming in general. So, and also to be, I guess, more masters of our own destiny when it comes to what our transmission looks like in the future. So I would really like to have the experts that worked on that project also be in the room as we kind of move forward with some of this, just to make sure that we've got the right people in the right places. So.
Okay, questions for Mr. Bush? Senator Landon.
Mr. Chairman, just real quickly, I would certainly have asked, kind of the same question as I did the RAs. But with the opportunity to kind of work on this for the next couple of days, I'll be interested in, Mr. Bush, anything you have to say about if we're going to do a study of this magnitude, what's not there and what would we like to see out of it, from your perspective? So.
Yep. And
Mr. Bush.
Mr. Chairman and Senator Landon, that's exactly what I'm hoping for, is to have the experts there that can help guide this as much as possible and make sure that we do get the information that we're looking for out of this study. Sounds like it's going to be a needed and really deep study. So we want to make sure at the end we get the information that's going to help the state move forward and certainly help our customers.
Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else? Mr. Moline.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brett Moline, Wyoming Farm Bureau Federation, sitting in support of this bill. Electricity is according to my father, one of the modern conveniences that is so important to every aspect of agriculture. So having a dependable, affordable flow of electricity is paramount to my industry. When I first read this bill, there's one thing I like about my job. I learn a lot. Some of the things I learned here this morning when I read the bill, to me, a good, dependable, affordable transmission line would lend to a dependable distribution as well. I think adding in some more aspects of the distribution, what's getting actually out to the consumer, is a good idea. So sitting in support of the bill and a further refinement of the bill, from what I've heard today, I think we're going in the right direction. A little bit more input would be valuable. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'd sit for any questions you or the committee may have for me.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Moline? Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Moline. We appreciate what you do. Who else would like to address us on the bill? Notice there's one big utility that's just sitting on their butts back there. Notice that. Okay. Anybody else like to address the committee on this bill? Anybody else? Anybody else online?
Mr. Chairman, we did have Quentin Rogers register, but there is no one online.
Mr. Rogers, if you're in the ether, you could try to get on. All right. Committee, you've heard the testimony. What is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Landon.
I guess I like the idea of working this bill a little bit for the next couple of days. I commend the sponsor, but I think there's some things that we've learned this morning that could be brought into the bill. I just wanted to make this comment, which is This actually touches on one of the suggested interim topics that we were unable to take up. We've got Western power grid issues out across the Western United States by the dozens. We've got lots of issues. Appreciate Mr. Jenks always sharing what's going on out there. And it is a fast moving landscape of issues on power transmission. So we were unable to get to that because it just simply wasn't voted in. And we spent a lot of time on other things, but I welcome the opportunity to have this visit on this bill. I would suggest we move it to Wednesday though.
Committee, I think that's probably a good idea. I think there's urgency in this whole topic. I don't know if any of you are, I know that some of you may have seen it, but the North American Electricity Reliability Council, which is largely a utility-driven organization, has issued a warning of unprecedented about the fragility really of the Western power situation, and how with the right combination of electricity production and load, we are very vulnerable. I mean, when I first started the electricity business, we were trying to bring a lot of large nuclear plants online. So we were trying to bring glory to the fact that we had lots of extra capability. And we were, instead of saying excess capacity, we were trying to get people to use terms like ample reserve margins, where there was 30% reserves. 30%, that's huge when we, in like the Midwest. Now it is razor thin, and we know trying to integrate intermittent resources is difficult, and on and on and on. So this is an important topic. It's timely. But we do have a couple of days, and Senator Boner, if you would lead that effort and maybe try to get stakeholders together. I realize there might be conflicts, but it's a study. You can always work it. Would you be willing to do that for the next couple of days?
Absolutely, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the opportunity. So far, I have the Rural Electric Association, Black Hills Energy, any other utilities who may want to
I
participate.
don't think Rocky Mountain Power wants to be part of it.
And so, of course, we're not going to exclude anybody. PSC, OCA, and of course, Energy Authority. And as far as topics that we need to discuss, I have, we need to consider specifics, given some specific direction as to which, what qualifies for different low growth scenarios in terms of the actual, I think,
Yeah.
need of analysis of the need for new generation, impacts on ratepayers, whether an RTO or a day-ahead market and joining one is even a good idea, as well as what Mr. Lindholm brought up with the
Americans for Prosperity.
Americans for Prosperity. That's right. And so prohibiting basically analysis of the things that he's concerned about. So that's what I have right now.
I think that's fabulous. Committee not explicitly mentioned is the Wyoming Industrial Electrical Consumers, but I think they've been working with the agency, but certainly you might consider that. So come back to us on Wednesday with some thoughts and direction, and work with him. And this room would be available lots of times, and you're at your. So with that, we'll just set this aside without prejudice and pick it up again on Wednesday. Appreciate it. Senator Crago, why don't you come forward and tell us about your bill? It is Senate File 113, 2026 General Election Hand Count Comparison. Go ahead. Go ahead, Senator Crago. Welcome.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, committee. Thank you for the opportunity to bring you Senate File 113, 2026 General Election Hand Count Comparison. Mr. Chairman, I think we all know, we all have folks that live in our districts back home that have concerns about the accuracy and integrity of our tabulating machines. I may not be one of those people, but I do respect the opinion of a lot of those folks. This bill is the result of a lot of work and a lot of back and forth with our county clerks. I leaned on them pretty heavily in the drafting of this particular bill because I wanted something that they could actually implement and that mirrored or met up with our other statutory timelines that are already within our election code. And so that was really my goal, is twofold. One, bring forth a product that would prove that our machines are doing what we say they are doing, what the state represents that they do, and allows the clerks to actually implement the process that we're putting before them. Much of this bill, as you will see as I walk through it, Mr. Chairman, committee, is non-codified. There's a couple pieces we have to stick into code so that we can actually accomplish this goal, but most of the bill is non-codified. My thought process was, let's see how this works. Let's do the 2026 election, see how, if we're able to do this, if we can actually pull it off, if the clerks can make this happen without too much headache, which I think they can. I think you'll hear from them here in a bit. And if so, then we can reevaluate before our next election and see if this is something we want to continue, if we want to make it, put it into the green books permanently, like other states have, or not. But that's a discussion for another day. This is just going to focus, Mr. Chairman, on what we're going to do for 2026 in both the general and primary elections. And so I'll just walk you through it real quick, Mr. Chairman, committee. The bill starts on the top of page 2. The meat of the bill starts there. That essentially, there's a deadline for appointing election judges. That portion at the top of page 2 essentially says that deadline does not apply to appointing the members of the hand count audit board. Moving down there, that's on 22.8.102 qualification, that would allow judges to serve on the hand count audit, because I think in some counties, if we have bipartisan counting boards, you're going to have a hard time finding certain members of a certain party. And so that would allow them to do both. Then really the portion of the bill that's most important, which is the non-codified part, starts on page 3. And I'll just read to you beginning at the end of line 7, which this is really the purpose of the bill. It says the purpose of the hand count audit is to complete a physical examination of as close to 5% of the total number of ballots cast on election day per county as possible, and compare the results of the hand count audit to the results tabulated by the electronic equipment. Each county clerk shall conduct a hand count audit of the ballots for one federal race and one statewide race as selected by our good Secretary of State. So the Secretary of State will decide which races those are. It does not have to be the same race in each county or same races. In addition, turning the page to the top of page 4, each legislative race will also be examined pursuant to the audit set forth in this bill. On top of that, the canvassing board can also.
Want some coffee? Elections put me to sleep.
I do not need any coffee, Mr. Chairman, but I'll wait for you to return if you'd like.
No, let's get all the work done before he gets back.
All right. Yes, sir. So the next part, each legislative race will also be looked at through this bill. Moving down on the page at the lines 18, 19, 20, the hand count audit shall be conducted no later than 9 days after the county canvass. And that's important because that allows for a contest, which has to happen within 14 days. And so if there is some issue, we can notify those participants that are in those particular race or races that may have issues. And that would alleviate a lot of the issues that we've been hearing about lately. And then I think it's super important at the bottom of page 5, lines 19 through 23, the folks that are doing the hand count audit are not trying to determine intent of the voter. They're trying to match up how the machines would tabulate the vote. And I think the clerks can explain that to you better than I can. But essentially, we are not trying to determine if there are 2 boxes checked. The machine's going to say that's an overvote and it will be counted as such. If one's crossed out and another one's circled, they will count it the exact same as the machine. And that's built into the bill language as well. Top of page 6, any inconsistencies or errors that are found will be reported to the Secretary of State, and then the Secretary of State, there in the subparagraph E, will then report those inconsistencies or errors to you as the Joint Corporations Committee. And I'm happy to stand for any questions, Mr. Chairman or committee.
Thank you very much, Senator. Appreciate your work. Committee, questions for Senator Craigo? Anybody? Questions for Senator Craigo? Senator Craigo, I got one little concern. You're the nicest guy around, but you use the term, I leaned on the clerks pretty heavily. And I'm kind of interested in, well, I'm going to hear from them too, but I think clerks and assessors in a different realm have just been forced up against the wall to kind of acquiesce. And sometimes I think we may have pushed that relationship too far. But when you say leaned on for heavily, that doesn't mean they like that. They're going to get a chance to talk, of course, but they didn't come to you and say, we'd love to do a hand count test, did they? Explore that with me a little bit.
Mr.
Indulge
Chairman,
me.
I'm not gonna put words in their mouths. I think they'll tell you what they think about this particular option. But to your point, they did not call me up.
Yeah.
I asked them. Specifically, I see a lot of other similar bills coming forward that as I read them, the clerks can't do, or it puts such an undue burden on them that we won't be able to get our elections conducted the way I think they should be done, or probably the way that you think they should be done. I was trying to come up with some other solution that they could actually do. Whether they like this bill or not, I don't. I think they will tell you that they're okay with it, but I will not, like I said, I'm not going to put words in their mouth. You can ask that question of them, but they did not call me up. I asked them for help to put together a bill that they thought they could actually accomplish and that would accomplish the goals that I think we all want to accomplish. That, I think that answers your question, Mr. Chairman, but no, I'm not sitting here telling you that they're going to come up here and tell you that they want to do hand counts, that they're dying to do hand counts, because I don't believe that to be accurate. My point is if we're going to do them, which maybe we are and maybe we aren't, let's at least give them some sort of middle ground that they can actually accomplish and that doesn't put them in a bind come election day and the days following, Mr. Chairman.
Fair enough. And it's kind of tough talk right now, and I appreciate it. The gist of this is whether or not hand counting is better or not. There certainly is a lot of rhetoric that hand counting is somehow superior, but the science seems to be that hand counting is worse than tabulation, and that tabulation can be credibly proven, and that hand counting introduces more people of different affiliations that may have more thought about the outcome of an election, whereas a machine is neutral with respect to the outcome of an election. Could you comment on that? And so what we've done and what it seems to be is that all these hand count bills have come about from people that I think are misdirected. And then we've come to where, well, let's get inside them and let's come up with a hand count bill that is least objectionable so that we can satisfy that element. I'm not sure that's a good strategy. So, and that seems to be your strategy in this. Would you think so?
Mr. Chairman, I would agree with that. Whether or not it's a good strategy, I guess we can disagree about that.
Okay.
Do I think the machines are kicking out faulty results? I do not. As you know, I work for Johnson County. That's my day job. I've seen how how it all works. I trust my clerk. I trust the equipment. My point, Mr. Chairman, is to prove that we're right. I mean, at the end of the day, that is my hope, is to put that level of trust back in the people through a bill that's a one-time audit. Like I said, we could decide sometime later that maybe it needs to be done every time. I think the results will speak for themselves. But I'm not trying to paint the clerks into a corner. I think you will hear from them.
We will.
That whatever you're going to hear from them, that I'm not putting pressure on them. I hope they don't feel that I'm putting pressure, or that the legislators that are involved in this particular bill are trying to put pressure on them, because that is not my intent. So I am probably on the same page as you, Mr. Chairman, on a lot, except maybe whether this is a good idea or not.
Right.
So, and I'm happy to have more discussions about that. I'm happy to, if there's ways to make it better, obviously I'm always open for that. And hopefully the folks behind us have some ideas on how to do that if necessary.
And committee, forgive me, but Mr. Creo, you feel that if we had a bill that was reasonable hand count bill that showed that there was no problem, that would quiet the naysayers a little bit, that would fill in that and we'd move on.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think that we're going to ever quiet everybody.
Okay.
I mean, that's not that's not my goal, is
Yeah.
to quiet the naysayers. I don't think that's where we're trying to go with this particular piece of legislation, or any piece. I don't think that will happen. And I'm not suggesting that we replace our electronic counting tabulators with hand count. I'm saying this allows us to show that they work, and it's a one-time effort, 2026 at this point. If we decide we want to do it and the public says, I think this is a good idea, and the clerks say we can do this, that's a different discussion for a different day, for a couple years down the road, or next year, or whatever, after we see how it happens, if this bill happens to pass, Mr. Chairman. That's sort of where I'm going. But to your answer, no, I'm realistic. We are never going to get to the point where there are some folks who truly believe we should only do hand counts. That's not what this bill is about. This bill is about showing that our machines actually do work, and this is just an insurance policy to prove that that is correct. There's a possibility, Mr. Chairman, that someone else could be right besides you and I, and that this would show that. If we're wrong, it will show that.
Thank you, Senator Crego. Anybody else have questions for Senator Crego? Thank you very much. Let's hear from the Secretary of State's office. Mr. Secretary, welcome. Hope you're
Thank
doing well.
you, Mr. Chairman. Happy President's Day. I am Chuck Gray, the Wyoming Secretary of State, and to my right is Joe Rubino, our Policy Director and Counsel. I appreciate the time to discuss this bill and some of the outstanding issues on hand counts, hand recounts. As a little bit of background, we've been working really for 3 years with the people of Wyoming, the clerks, and different members of the legislature for some time now on a way that we can provide for a more complete verification of the machine count. During the 2025 general session and the 2025 interim, we worked on legislation to provide for hand recounts and hand audits of the machine count. House Bill 52, which was sponsored by the Joint Corporations Committee and modeled after House Bill 232 from the 2025 general session, with some amendments from the work we put in during the 2025 interim on it, is currently before the House on general file. And this was a bill, it's probably the most vetted elections bill of this biennium. And it passed in the House side with a huge margin in the general session, and actually was in another bill that was brought by the Senate President on the Senate side that passed with a huge margin over there with some amendments. So that bill is outstanding. The question has become, because in that bill, what you had was a move up of the election date by 2 weeks in order to make time for hand recounts in certain automatic situations and also other situations as well. The issue has been that after that bill failed in the 2025 general session, that the clerks and I are in agreement, and I think everybody is in agreement, that moving the election date is not an option once we are in calendar year 2026. So the question is, I think that there's a space for, once we get past 2026, for House Bill 52, what was House Bill 252, which has passed the House and Senate in versions to become the option of getting this done. And then what we've been engaging with the clerks on is, what do we do for 2026? We all want to have something for 2026 in light of some of the issues that have come up in 2024 and before that, in the concerns that are out there. And so, conversing with the clerks, this is the idea of what could be done in 2026. So I'm very supportive of this, but I think it needs to be inserted into the grand, larger bill past 26 moving forward in this session, and we get it all done at once. And that's where I think we go with this. So I'm certainly supportive of this concept. I think this is great. I think this needs to get done, but I think we need to have a larger conversation moving forward beyond what this would look like. And I think we're almost there with the clerks. I mean, in talking about this, what I just have really enjoyed our collaboration with the clerks over the years. There's ups and downs with it, like any relationship that has differing standpoints on certain issues. But I think we're there, and that something needs to be done for 26. And that's basically in some form what this bill does. And then moving forward, we need to have a longer term solution. And I think we can get it all done in one grand bill. And that's what we're working on. We're continuing to work that through the session. On the specifics of the bill, the clerks and I have discussed this. This only applies to the 2026 primary and 2026 general election, in which county clerks shall be required to conduct a hand count audit of actual ballots for one federal race and one statewide race, as well as each legislative race on the ballot. From our office's perspective, we can certainly implement this legislation as we can implement House Bill 52 alongside the county clerks. I do want to note that as written, the audit would be completed no later than 9 days after the county canvass, which would place it after the state canvassing board. Any anomalies identified by the hand count would thus potentially be identified after the results may be certified, which would still open it up under statute for challenge. And that was always the intent, since we're in agreement, we can't move the election date in 2026, is that we still complete this process before the challenge statute is expired. So candidates would still be able to challenge results, although certification will have already occurred. I certainly appreciate this approach and am supportive of it in 2026 in light of the date issues, but I think we need to place it in a larger solution, which is going to address the concerns of the public and also concerns that are out there that I think just need to be addressed. Now, one other note, Section 2 begins with Section A, but does not indicate which statute it is amending. I think this may need to be a new section, perhaps 22-6-131. So again, certainly supportive of this. I think it's fine to move forward, but I think we're going to have an amendment on House Bill 52 and potentially on this bill moving forward, which addresses the issue as a whole. And I think we can get there in this session. And I think it's going to quash these concerns. And like you said, Chairman Case, I mean, people have different approaches to issues. One is to just not address issues that are out there. And the second approach is to address them. And I'm in that second batch that we need to address these. I think we can get there. Everybody was on board with House Bill 232. There were a couple amendments in the interim that got people concerned, but I think ultimately those are going to get reversed on the floor. And then we add in this portion for 2026, and then we're there.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Thank
Questions for the Secretary? Senator Doc Stater.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, the clerks are behind this. Will you stand with the clerks?
Mr. Secretary.
Mr. Chairman, certainly supportive of this concept. And just as I said, I think we need to place this in the larger recount bill. And we've had discussions on that, and I think we're going to get there to larger support for the whole concept. So absolutely support working with them on all approaches. And we've continued to work with them on this and House Bill 52. it's been a 3-year process.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Anybody else? Senator Landon.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. What does 52 do that this one does not? And then the second part of the question is, why wouldn't we see how this works and then revisit in January? It just seems like putting something in place before we even know if this is going to work. What are your thoughts on that?
Ms. Secretary.
Mr. Chairman, this is really a Band-Aid for 2026. There's a lot of problems with this approach. One is that it is after the canvas. So the results have already been certified. And as I discussed earlier, that's a big problem in terms of auditing a result that has already been certified. Granted, it is during the challenge period, but barely during the challenge period.
Okay.
And I doubt a judge, if it did get brought, it's so close to when the general election ballot is certified. I'm not sure even if something was found, what would happen. And so this is really a Band-Aid. It's a nice thing for 26 because we can't move the date of the election, but it really, I don't think it's going to be satisfying in terms of the larger structure of the election calendar. And in my conversations with Clerk Irvin, don't want to put words into my mouth, but the concern of having an audit after the results are certified, that's not really satisfying, I think, to any election official. And so what needs to happen is we need to pass 26, we need to look at the date, and then we need to have the ability to actually do this before the canvas, before the results are certified.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Secretary, do you believe in Wyoming elections? Do you think they're good elections?
Mr. Chairman, I think we've got great election processes, but I think we need to keep improving. I'm really for that. I really reject this standpoint that, hey, everything's great. We don't have room for improvement. It's not the way I live my life.
Do you think that's
You know,
fraud?
these 36 years I've lived, I just turned 36 last week. Every day I tell our guys, we're going to have a 3-yard run up the middle in our office, at least. And we're going to work hard for the people. And there's a lot of issues that need to be improved in Title 22 in the election code. One of those is that we don't even have a method of hand verifying the ballots under Wyoming law, except the county canvassing board. And even that was pretty vague. When we had the issue in Weston County, we had to get the attorney general to sort of issue a caveat off of another ruling they had that even allowed any hand examination of the ballots. And that's an issue. I mean, you have a problem that's out there. You have to be able to have a way of checking the machines.
You think there's fraud?
Mr. Chairman, I think there have been cases of fraud. There have been. And one case is too many. It's too many because it negates somebody's vote.
Do you think any elections have been stolen in Wyoming in the past 10 years?
Mr. Chairman, I've only been an election official for 3 years, so I wouldn't comment to the last 10 years.
Okay. In the 3 years, has any election been stolen?
Mr. Chairman, I think stolen is not the right word. In Weston County, we had a huge issue. And I think it was one of the greatest moments of our administration was saying that we're not going to back down. We're going to get to the truth of this. I think under predecessors, it would have just been certified the way it had been reported. And it took us a year to finally get justice, I think, in terms of the huge anomalies and the problems with the way that was handled, getting justice on that. And it was way too long, way too long. And that whole time, the media just calling us names and the left that doesn't want to have any sort of verification of the machines. It's really unfortunate the way this issue has been clouded by that perspective. We need to have truth in these elections, and we need to have the ability to ask questions. And just asking questions doesn't make somebody a bad person.
Thank you, Ms. Secretary.
Thank you.
You're not a bad person.
Well, thank you. Thanks for saying that.
Anybody else from Ms. Secretary? Thank you very much, Mr. Rubino. Good to see you today. Thanks for working on a holiday.
Yes.
I noticed the Public Service Commission is kind of working too. Should we do a timeout? Would the Public Service Commission like to say anything? So you could go back. It is a holiday. There was a bill earlier and, please, is it okay? Let's just take a little break because somebody tied a tie very fast and came over here and I appreciate it. A dear friend of mine too. Mr. Boswell, Commissioner Boswell.
Mr. Chairman, Chris Boswell with Public Service Commission. And yes, I did indeed tie my tie quickly at about 8:05 this morning, and it should have been tied at 7:05. So my apologies for not being here, members of the committee. The commission is, of course, aware of the bill, is certainly prepared to work in any appropriate way with the Energy Authority as it moves forward. These are difficult questions. It's a changing world. It's a changing world of external day ahead markets and all the rest. And I suppose from someone that's been on the commission for all of 4 or 5 months, I just note that what the state of Wyoming orders, typically the state of Wyoming's ratepayers will be on the hook for. So we're all going to be aware of that as we go forward. It's not easy to share these and this bill doesn't call for any costs. But were we to desire to order certain actions in terms of transmission or the many other issues that come before all of us, the concern would be effects on the ratepayer, and that we'll have that going forward. And I'm sure the committee and the sponsor of the bill is well aware of that as well. Mr. Chairman, I do apologize for not being here earlier, and happy to answer questions.
And just by way of letting people know what's happening, Mr. Boswell is talking about a bill that was before the committee earlier that we've set aside till Wednesday, and it's a bill on electricity transmission. He's not testifying with respect to election hand counts. But I want to express my great appreciation to him for coming here and indicating that he will work with Senator Boner and his group and all of us. So if anybody has any questions for Commissioner Boswell, that'd be most welcome. We're grateful. You should get back out of here and enjoy your holiday.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And the best to the commission staff and the OCA. We'll pick back up with the clerks. Thank you very much. We're going to return to the bill on hand counting elections. Got it.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and
ahead.
members of the committee. I'm Mary Langford, and I have the honor of representing the county clerks of the state of Wyoming. Joining me at the table this morning is the Honorable Malcolm Irvin, who is the Platte County Clerk, and we would like to discuss Senate File 113.
Go right ahead.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Just a quick moment. I would like to thank you and the committee for all of your work and all of your attention to whether bills can be administered by county clerks. When we come to you, we don't come with the focus of is it good policy or bad policy. We come with can we do it or not? And we believe the Senate Corporations Committee has been very thoughtful in those comments we've had. And so I want to just say thank you from all of us. This is my last legislative session as president of the association. I'm not going anywhere unless the voters of Platte County have a different idea, but last session as the president of the association, and it's been an honor to work with your committee through redistricting and through this session as well. So thank you. On the bill at hand, Mr. Chairman, I think one thing to note right off the top is the title probably does need a fix. It's not just a general election. It would include the primary election as well. I just want that to be clear that as written, we'll be undertaking this audit for the primary and the general. This bill for us, Mr. Chairman, the county clerks, it's not a question of preference. It's a question of can it be administered? And the answer to that is yes. Senator Crago reached out a number of months ago, interested in the concept, and flat out asked, what do we need to do something in 2026? And obviously our preference would have been something passed in 25, if that's the will of the legislature, so we had time to plan, prepare, and deploy successfully. But we think this is crafted in a way that we could administer it, Mr. Chairman. And so from that point of view, at this point, it becomes a policy decision for you all, whether this is the will of the legislature or not, to introduce a hand component in the 26 election. You know, anything in election week that's adds time, adds workload, stress, the potential for human error, and of course, expense. Of course, you'll have to ask, is that juice worth the squeeze? And that's going to be your question to answer. But we'll be happy to answer any questions. I do wonder, Mr. Chairman, if perhaps hearing some of the comments, if on page 6, starting line 11, if that section should be amended that a report is due to the Corporations Committee regardless of result. Right now, it just requires it in the event of error or inconsistency. But I think that when it's when the audit confirms that the equipment is tabulating accurately, I think we should celebrate that as well to show that that audit was successful. So perhaps something to think about. I would like to explain the legislative race portion. I want to be clear, this doesn't mean we're auditing every ballot that's cast in every legislative race. It's just those ballots that 5% of ballots that went through tabulating equipment that is selected by the canvassing board for audit. We're going to get as close to 5% as possible. Some counties will be just over, some will be just under, but we're going to be as close to 5% as possible. And when we do that, of course, every ballot will have at least one state house race. Approximately 50% of ballots in the state will have a state senate race. And so whatever race shows up on that ballot, we will audit. And so we actually believe that saved us time in terms of sorting and then ensuring we get a better quality audit. We really conversed a lot with our colleagues in Utah who have a similar hand audit component, and we learned a lot from them, some cautionary tales as well. And so, Mr. Chairman, with that, we would just answer any questions you may have, but we can administer this bill in 26 as written. But we would ask that it do not stray too far from where it's currently drafted.
Okay. Questions for either one of these people? Go ahead, Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you guys for all your hard work these last few sessions as well. I was just curious because in visiting with my county clerk before I came down, we were talking about if you're trying to audit a machine and whether it's counting correctly, you have the tape that comes out of the machine that tells you exactly what their count was and how that happened. So we were trying to figure out just logistically how it works when, for example, you'll have your absentee or early voting in the office and that'll be on a different machine than the counting of, so how do you pull that all out and make it make sense? She and I were talking about how it might be easier to audit the machine because that's what's in question here is whether the machine is counting correctly or not. If we were doing audits of specific machines rather than broad elections, because for example, in Goshen County, we have one machine that takes care of the absentees or the early voting. How do you break those statewide races or the legislative races out of that? And what does that look like? And how do you do that, I guess, is the question I'm asking.
Go ahead, Mr. Irwin.
Mr. Chairman and Senator Steinmetz, that's the beauty of this bill. And, we do always prefer that if a legislator has an idea that involves some sort of election administration, that they approach us and ask, how do we do it? That matter of policy, is it a good idea, bad idea? We'll leave that up for you all to decide on the floor. But when it's asked, how do we accomplish this, Senator Steinmetz, that's what this bill does. So we will take the equipment that's tabulating ballots on election day, and really we're auditing the equipment. So the Secretary of State's office will say, you need to audit this federal race or this statewide race. And then in that piece of equipment that the county canvassing board has selected. And we thought that was important for a variety of reasons. One of which is in that canvassing boardroom, you'll have that discussion of this looked a little off to me, that looked off. I'd really like to go look at my absentee ballot machine, for instance, or this one at the Rendezvous Center, wherever it may be, because something looked different. And we'll pull that piece of equipment, we'll audit those ballots in it, again, as close to 5% as possible, but it will be the entire machine for those 4 races. And so Senator Steinmetz, that's a fantastic question. And we think that's what this bill does, because we will compare it to the actual tapes that were printed on election night.
Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you, Clerk Irwin. Senator Dockstader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Despite a change that we need to make in the title, adding primary to general elections, sir, does the county commissioner support this as is? Or not, excuse me, county clerks?
Mr. Chairman, I'd really hate to speak for the county commissioners, but on behalf of the county clerks, should this be the intent of the legislature and a good policy decision, this is implementable. And so if the intent of the legislature is to have some hand count in 26, we would be supportive of this concept over any other concept. And so now down the road, that's a different discussion. But for 2026 specifically, Senator Dockstader, Mr. Chairman, this does it. We're comfortable with this. The matter of policy we'll leave up to you, but administration, we can do it.
Thank you.
Carefully chosen words. Did everybody notice that? So I'm going to go right to the heart. Do you like this bill, Clerk Irvin? Is it a good idea? Don't talk to us about the legislative policy. I want to know, do clerks want this? Are they asking for this?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to take off my Clerks Association hat and just
Absolutely.
put the Platte County Clerk hat on. And
You've got that hair, actually.
Yeah, to that
At least
question.
you've got hair.
Yes, yes. Mr. Chairman, to that question, yes. In Platte County, one thing we heard from our Utah colleagues was when this was implemented, something similar to this, and to be clear, Utah only audits 1%. And so I'm considering ourselves 5 times more sure than Utah, right? And so when we talked to them, they said, there's those folks that will always question it. They will always have concerns about automatic tabulating equipment. But the folks on the periphery that they were having some headway and those folks were starting to ask questions, that's the person that comes up to you in the grocery store and says, is there something to it? They said they really saw a lot of success with those folks, that the rhetoric cooled down, that it helped them in their offices. And so based off the experiences that our colleagues in Utah have experienced, Mr. Chairman, the Platte County Clerk fully supports the concept and believes this is a good addition to the election code.
Okay, let me just verify. And you're saying, I mean, part of the strategy here is to block the other bills, right? I mean, possibly. I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but that's part of the strategy. So you're saying even absent that part of the strategy, this is a good bill by itself.
Well, and Mr. Chairman, I do need to clarify my very last statement that it's a good addition to the election code. One thing I really liked about this bill, and I know that my colleagues did as well, is this is not codified for the most part. We have 2 sections that are, of course, because we need those for judge appointment. But the fact that it's not codified, and the reason I think that it should be amended to where we have to come back and give you a report no matter what, then we can have that broader discussion of, okay, how do we implement this long term? Was this valuable? Could it replace a current audit we have in place? Yes or no? And so I think this starts a conversation long term. If it was codified, we would be looking for a couple of different things, of course. Given it's a one-time shot, we think this is good for 2026, and then have the discussion later on. When House Bill 52 gets to you, Mr. Chairman, I promise we'll have that other discussion about the long term, but I'm not quite ready to be there with the bill in its current state. Should it be amended with the amendments that county clerks offered? I think we can get there. But for the time being, this concept for 2026 is about the only option to introduce anything into the 26 election.
Committee, forgive me, I've got one more. Why don't we implement a bill like this and relook at the 2024 election instead of the 2026 and do it now? Have you destroyed those ballots?
Mr. Chairman, we still have the 24 ballots on hand. We keep them for 2 years. And so time would be running out on the 24 primary, of course. Those are slated
August.
for destruction in August. And so that's an interesting concept. Nobody has come to us with that. I would need to take that and think a little bit on it, Mr. Chairman. One thing, and we were careful with Senator Crago on the timeline, was the reason we wanted this done within 9 days is it allowed a candidate or an elector really of any sort to contest the election. So should something pop up, there was a remedy for that election. And so I don't think that we would find anything in 24. I have full confidence. And the piece of the Weston County election nobody talks about is the accurate results were certified.
Mhm.
I mean, that's the piece that keeps getting missed everywhere, is the results were certified accurately by the county and state canvassing boards. So do I think that we would find anything in 24? No. But this bill allows, should something happen that we don't know exists, that's the purpose of an audit, right? That there's a remedy for those electors to make sure that their results are accurate.
Fair enough. I think it'd be useful to think about relooking at 24 election when we're not all upset. It's not election year. There's not election rhetoric. It's put to bed. So what did those machines really do? Were there any errors at all? It's a lot less, I don't know, controversial. But Mr. Irvin, I really appreciate the testimony of the clerks today. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Well, Mr. Chairman, you just said something there that I think I was remiss in not mentioning. We do currently conduct 2 audits post-election. And those were reported with accuracy. Weston County, we found out later, submitted showing that there were 21 errors across 75 ballots. What that showed was the audit works. And so I actually have full faith we would not find anything because of the 24 audits that were in place. I think they work. I was a proponent and worked with Secretary Buchanan in his office to get the most recent post-election audit in place. And then, of course, Senator Boner was instrumental in making sure that that was codified in law. And so, Mr. Chairman, I have full faith that we would not find anything in 24 because of the 2 audits we do currently.
Fine. Thank you very much. Appreciate your testimony. Let's hear from anyone else, public. Ms. Simmons, you might as well fill out the chairs. Got 3 chairs. Welcome, Ms. Simmons. Are you too high or too low? Ms. Simmons.
Good morning, Chairman and members of the Senate Corporations Committee. I am Gail Simmons with Civics 307. We are a nonpartisan nonprofit encouraging civic education, engagement, and voter participation. I speak in support of this bill and against any other hand counting bills I have ever seen in this legislature. SF 113 treats elections like any other high consequence public system. You measure performance, verify exceptions, and document results. This bill is a confidence audit designed to validate machine tabulation accuracy through a comparison to a bipartisan hand count of election day paper ballots. It gives clerks a clear tool to reinforce credibility with local proof, not talking points. It replaces arguments with measurable results. A loud and organized minority rejects evidence of machine accuracy. Dietrich Bonhoeffer named the danger. Stupidity is a more dangerous enemy of the good than malice, and reasons fall on deaf ears. Facts that contradict one's prejudgment simply need not be believed. Bonhoeffer did not mean limited intelligence. He meant a stubborn, voluntary, often collective resistance to critical thought and fact. Ignorance responds to education. That resistance does not. The practical response is not louder persuasion. The response is a system that records verified facts and makes them ordinary. SF 113 creates that system. Bipartisan audit boards hand count a defined sample. Counties report discrepancies. The Secretary of State compiles a statewide report for legislative oversight. The public gets Wyoming data, county by county. To make the audit credible and useful, procedures should do 4 things. Use random selection as the foundation, then add a targeted rule so the sample includes both high volume and low volume units. Define what counts as a difference and require standard discrepancy categories for reporting. Require a second hand count when any tally differs from the machine total and report both counts. Put procedural development with the County Clerks Association and align it with U.S. Election Assistance Commission guidance on post-election tabulation audits. SF 113 supports clerks, validates accuracy, produces Wyoming data, and creates a public record that supports confidence and oversight. I urge you to pass it. I do have one additional comment from a statistical process perspective. The 5% sample size is too large and unnecessarily expensive. The EAC recommends 1%. I would recommend 2%. And I stand for questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Simmons. Questions for Ms. Simmons? Any questions for Ms. Simmons? Thank you very much. Mr. Moline, Ms. Herman, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman Committee. Marguerite Herman for the League of Women Voters.
How about pulling that mic a little closer?
Sure. Marguerite Herman from the League of Women Voters. And I would say, as Ms. Simmons says, there's this bill really has very modest goals, and I think it will achieve those. I'm wondering, I think we need to back up and really kind of maybe restate what we expect it to do. What will we do as a result of it? Will we have to do it every year? Because it sounds like something that will not be settled with one demonstration. So I think that has to be anticipated. We already know about hand counting, and we already have a demonstration as the county clerk in Campbell County shared with you during the interim. And she did a study, and it's part of your meeting materials from, I believe, November, and talked about her own demo in Campbell County, how she conducted it, the error rates with different kinds of people counting, that sort of thing. She counted for the time, the money, the reliability, and the staff, and this physical space that hand counting consumes. It's a great study, and without getting the details, I'll just sort of remind you of her conclusion, which was the current system of machine tabulation using paper ballots combined with pre-election testing and post-election audits provides a security, accuracy, efficiency, and reliability that hand counting cannot deliver. So I think we already know that. If what we want to do is demonstrate it to a skeptical public, I will just very, very briefly recall an effort during the interim that some people on this committee made to about another thing that we kind of understood, which was the difficulty of having one representative for each county. And that was well vetted. It was a great study. And the results were still problematic to a bunch of people and left sort of hanging. And so I would just say, let's anticipate this may be the same thing. It may not settle anything at all, just to be aware of that possibility. Just real briefly, there is no fiscal note on this. And we've already talked about how, again, consuming resources of time, staff, and money that the hand counting requires. So I think there should be a fiscal note. Granted, it may be absorbed on a county level, but that's money out of their pocket. So I would suggest that be and perhaps that is a weight. What we will learn, accomplish versus what it will cost. That's always the balance we're asked to do. Just that should be part of the calculation. And I would say, Mr. Chairman, your idea about testing the machines, because that's what this is sort of a verification of machine results, really could be done with the past. with past results. And it would take off, it would certainly not, add to the crush of that election week that, I know well, especially between the primary and the general, when no one has a spare minute in our county clerk's offices. So we would obviate that. So we would do it now, and have the leisure to do it, very publicly and thoroughly to everyone's satisfaction. So I endorse that idea. I think it's a good idea. So I guess not really for or against the bill, just let's, I guess be realistic, that what we prove, we may have to prove every 2 years. And if that's something you want to do, I guess, having heard the endorsement of the machines, their accuracy from Campbell County, and from the clerks, et cetera, and from the sponsor, I hope it achieves what we want it to, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Herman. Questions for Ms. Herman? Thank you very much. Mr. Moline.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Brett Moline, Wyoming Farm Bureau Federation. The policy of the Federation members is to have secure, accurate elections. I think that's everybody's goal. Does this bill get us there? Perhaps not there, but I believe it gets us closer. So sitting in support of this bill, probably I support getting the report, because I think sometimes good news is good news and we need to hear more of that. Probably the most intriguing part of this bill is when I hear the county clerk say that it works. That's important. To come up with a concept that doesn't work just doesn't work. So sitting in support of this, and just one final comment. Do we need to make a complete overhaul of everything? I don't know. But sometimes a Band-Aid is much better than full surgery. And if this bill works, let's go with it. So take any questions you, sir, or the committee may have for me. I would take any that you have.
Thank you, Mr. Moline. Questions for Mr. Moline? You're off the hook. Thank you very much. Anybody else in the room have testimony? Anybody else in the room? Yes, sir. We're kind of starting to run short of time.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I want to clarify one thing really quick. You asked me about elections over the last 10 years in Wyoming. And so I was uncomfortable speaking to before that point as the chief election official in Wyoming. I want to be clear, the 2020 election in other states, I've been clear, as Congresswoman Hageman has had tremendous problems. And my position is that it was rigged. So I want to be clear on that. And just the way you phrased it.
Might come back.
Yeah, I want to make sure on that. The way you phrased it, you said in Wyoming. So I wanted to be clear on the issues there that we talked about over the last 5 years. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Is there anybody online that'd like to testify?
There is not, Mr. Chairman.
Nobody online, nobody else in the audience. Committee, you've heard the testimony. What is your pleasure? Motion by Dockstader. I do know that Senator Landon has left a proxy vote, so discussion. There were at least a couple of amendments that were proposed. Senator Steinmetz?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I have one of those amendments. I might have missed the other one, but on page 6, lines 11 and 12, delete any ballot inconsistencies or counting errors between the original electronic ballot count, and delete that section and then capitalize the word "the," and that will just require the audit to come to this committee regardless of the outcome.
Thank you very much. Everybody got that? Discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. That's unanimous, aye. And is there anything else? Were we going to work with the bill title? It does say general election. And
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Senator Dockstader.
Chairman, just add primary right after 2026 would be primary and general elections.
So
and count on in comparison, we'd have to make it plural on elections.
Senator Dockstader, that certainly is one way. I was wondering, is it equally as effective to just do 2026 election hand count comparison
Fine too.
and delete general? Would that be acceptable as friendly?
Yes.
Okay. Discussion? Everybody okay? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Chair's eye. So any opposed? I guess not, because nobody else is here. So anything else on the bill? Anything else on the bill? Senator Steinmetz.
Mr. Chairman, I just have one comment, and that is, while I understand that this could be amended into another bill that's coming through, we don't have any assurances that of any bill making it to our desks.
Well,
and
it's starting
so-
in the House too. I mean,
You
place
said
is
that.
crazy.
not David. So I feel we need more than one horse in the race. And while I have seen some concerns about this bill, I'm comfortable moving it forward today. So I will be voting aye.
Thank you, Senator Steinmetz. Anybody else have anything? Let's call the roll.
Mr. Chairman, this is a roll call vote for Senate File 113 as amended. Senator Boner.
Aye.
Senator Dockstader.
Aye.
Senator Landon.
Senator Landon has left a proxy vote of aye.
Senator Steinmetz.
Aye.
Chairman Case.
No.
Mr. Chairman, you have 4 aye, 1 no.
Thank you very much. Thank you, committee. Get you out in a timely manner. Senator Craig will be responsible for the bill on the floor. I think we're good to go. Wednesday, we pick up the reapportionment bill, and then we're going to hear from Senator Boner. We'll probably do that second, Senator Boner. All right.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I'd just like to remind you good senators that Farm Bureau is having a luncheon Friday at noon down here in the corner. And
The vegetarian?